Hey everybody, welcome to another Midas Letter RAW! And today on the show we have, as usual, our good friend, Special Head Mileshki Polski Gorky himself all the way from Warsaw, Poland! Woo!
Thank you, thank you. Wait a minute, what are these?
Anyways, we have a great show as usual. Today we're going to be talking about the fact that El Salvador has approved Bitcoin as legal tender, the significance of that for markets, currencies, and reality. All going to be discussed here today. We're going to talk a little bit about the Peruvian election outcome. Was a showstopper by all accounts. Tight as a mouse's ear. Looks like we have ourselves, ladies, we have a communist government. So that's something
that's not official yet, but they're like very close to declaring it.
Well, I last checked it out. The election was on Sunday.
Yes.
And as of yesterday, with 97.7% of votes counted, Pedro Castillo had a lead of over 70,000 votes. So his wide is leading, even though that's a slim margin. Like we're talking 8 million votes for either candidate. That's how tight it is. 70,000 votes.
How many votes are left? Not many.
Well, there's, well, if
about
97.7% of the votes have been
votes.
counted, there's 16 million. That would imply that there's still 1 million to go. So it still could be anybody's election. Already.
Okay, anybody's election.
It's still anybody's election.
Like we said,
we don't know.
It's tight.
It's winning. It's a communist government. It's right. It's
Wait a minute. He's coming back.
Yeah, we have Ash Guglani here. He's the president of NEXE Innovation. He's going to tell us about his company, and they have a solution for all those little cups that you make in the little individual coffee makers. You know, the ones that are filling up landfills by
Don't tell me. Wait a minute. You're related to that person from that planet. Dan
He came from planet Claire. He came from planet Claire.
Dan Aykroyd. Dan Aykroyd.
Okay, Dan
What's
Aykroyd.
the
That's not bad.
No,
if
what's
I was
the
that
name?
funny, I wouldn't be doing this.
What's
now,
the name?
would I? Who?
The name
Chevy
is
Chase.
the guy with the funny head. The guy.
The guy with a funny head. You got a funny head. Everybody's got a funny head.
Ed's got a funny head.
Special head. That's why.
No, you know.
Anyways, we also have George Goldsmith, CEO and co-founder of Compass Pathways PLC, trading on the NASDAQ.
Okay.
This is the granddaddy of all cannabis company. Cannabis. Did I just say cannabis? Freudian slip. I'm on cannabis. We're not talking Cannabis Day. We're talking psychedelics, magic mushrooms, ketamine, XTC, DMT, LBV. Anyways, he's going to be here to tell us about his company, why he founded it, and how personal it is to him. We're going to talk about the NASDAQ. So we're going to talk about Graphene Manufacturing Group. Full disclosure, I'm a significant shareholder in the company. They are not a client, but I am conflicted by virtue of my holdings in that company, which I might point out are up like 1,000% from where I bought it. Woohoo! Party in the end zone. We're also going to talk about our sponsor and my sole client at this point. Voxtur Analytics, VXTR, VXTRF on the OTC real estate at the Speedolite.
News came out recently.
Another acquisition. We're going to talk about that because
a takeover, right? A takeover of a company.
There are some. We've really got our act together this week on the guest questions. We've actually put their names next to their question. So we're actually going to be able to identify the sender in of the questions, and that should just make for a more titillating experience.
Right.
Anyways, so Edward.
Yes, sir.
With what's going on in Peru, communism has now taken over. Well, theoretically, Peru has now gone to a leftist government.
Right.
Pedro Castillo campaigned on the idea that he was going to more firmly nationalize control over the mining companies. Up to 75%, he said, was going to be in the hands of the Peruvian government.
Alter the taxation of profits of mining companies tied to copper somehow, some kind of formula that I'm sure can change very rapidly. It's a definite extreme move to the left for Peru.
Yeah, and Peru is now in the ranking of copper producing countries. Where does Peru sit?
It's always second or third. Always second or third.
And so let's just pull up the chart here of the copper futures front month, and it's 447. Now.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So we got the copper chart.
Yeah. And I know you're saying, why isn't copper going?
Why hasn't it? And now I have to disclose here that I also I placed a bet totaling about $100,000 on the price of copper through an increased investment in U.S. copper. So I now have
U.S. copper. Is that a?
I have 600,000 shares.
Is that owned by the U.S. government?
No, but it might be one day because
right.
it's in California.
Yeah.
And anyway, so the price of copper is $4.48 per pound.
Yeah.
And you would think with the uncertainty inflicted on copper supply by the election that it should be flying.
Well, you know, copper is considered a barometer of the health of the economy. Yes. Copper has just doubled in a year. And we are now at levels that are that have only been here a few months, I guess.
Well.
A few months in 2011.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But here they are. We're within.
So you're saying this is normal digestion?
This is digestion. But
digestion.
if you knew of this back then, you'd say let's load up on copper. But maybe the smart money said we better start loading up on copper because we see clouds on the horizon. You know, a lot of the people involved in the industry, they're seeing events a lot faster or further down the road than the layman.
The layman?
Well,
ooh, you want to get laid, do you, big fella? Okay, enough of that.
And at Christmas, you'd be the sleigh man.
Hey.
Okay, never mind. Oh, where does this shit come from?
All right,
Okay.
who knows?
Okay,
so
I can see that the price, it takes a while of digestion.
Right.
But the main trend there that started a few months ago, I think if you draw a channel,
yes,
the channel's intact. And I would
channel.
look
the English
to
channel?
make sure, channel 4, news at 11. Okay.
I'm channeling the powers.
All right,
of the...
okay, so sure.
Right, okay, so anyway, so I was betting that copper would go up and take some of the juniors with it. U.S. Copper is a junior copper explorer at this point. They just started drilling in their Moonlight project in Central California.
No, it's Northeast California. I'll correct
Northeast?
Northeast.
Northeast California.
Yeah,
you corrected me last week on that too.
Northeast. It's
Northeast Central? North Central East?
They don't move it around.
They
not like checkers.
It's been there for a few million years,
hey,
has
LA, we want to switch now.
Okay. Anyway, so copper not moving, despite the fact that supply could be crimped by Castillo government.
Well, look at Chile coming on too. Anyway.
Anyways, we're going to jump right now too, because that's what we do. There's no consistency with anything. We're going to jump to a viewer question that I just remembered is quite pertinent to this matter at hand that we're talking
that we're discussing.
We have a question from a viewer whose name is Andreas, and Andreas would love to hear our thoughts on the commodity war brewing between the U.S. and China.
Yeah, you know, you read a lot of the financial papers, and they talk about, you know, for instance, China's dominance in these rare metals, okay, and people are uncomfortable getting more. Everybody seems to be getting sort of like they're looking over their shoulder.
Yes, well,
like,
China's certainly demonstrating hegemonic ambition.
There's the word. There's
you blame them following the historical pathways of first the British Empire, then the United States, who are hegemonic by any definition of the word, any stretch of the imagination.
Every world power wants to increase their acreage.
Sure.
Under their
Russia was hegemonic. France was hegemonic.
Look,
they all were.
They can't help it.
I'm going to be hegemonic, but at the end of the day, after a couple of drinks, I'm going to start taking over
for
more
instance,
property.
Did you ever say to yourself, maybe I wouldn't mind having the land next door?
Actually, funny thing you should say that.
Well, there you go.
I've been eyeballing up that corn
patch. Hedge monitor.
Yeah. So what do we think about the commodity war? The commodity war is something that is always in progress. It's called the commodities market, and that's where the prices play out. China is the largest commodity consumer in the world and not the largest producer. So I wouldn't characterize that as a real war, because the largest producer needs the largest consumer mutually. So there's no time for war.
But you notice how, for instance, the people in South America are becoming greedy. maybe not becoming greedy.
Just the
maybe,
people in South America.
Well, because of what's happening in Peru, what's happening in Chile, because they're big copper producers.
Ay, caramba,
They're
muchacho.
saying we're going to control our destiny.
Solo Latinos?
So people are getting tired of pushed around. Anyway,
Yes,
back to the divergence between the haves and the have-nots.
Oh.
It feels like a revolution is brewing in the world.
A revolution.
More polarization, not less, more. And that's what happens in periods of
extreme.
when people always, it's either black or white. You know, there's no more vanilla, or there's no more in between.
There's no more compromise.
There's no more gray ice cream.
Well, you know, it's interesting if you follow the social media discourse, we'll call it.
Yes.
A lot of it's mindless, but there is a growing trend of the discourse among people who are not politically involved to feel that they are being manipulated by the government into this state of division, because it's a classic political meme policy to divide and conquer is to rule. So to what extent would you say that the forces behind the governments are actively trying to divide us against one another by presenting absolute polls instead of encouraging a mix? Like that's the great thing in Peru when they do their election. The first round, it's like there's like 20 candidates, and it's only the top 2 who go to a runoff election, which is why you always end up with an extreme representation.
Right.
Right is right. The other one's left.
Right.
Left.
Wrong.
Yes. But
look. People will go to unbelievable lengths to achieve their. What?
Nothing.
You okay? Did you lose concentration?
Phantoms.
Okay. Yeah, everybody, I don't know what people do. What will a guy like Erdogan do to stay in power?
Erdogan?
Yeah.
Kill people.
What about people in in the Middle East where they had the Civil War?
They kill people. They kill each other.
They look.
Yeah. Well, this long-term peace that we've enjoyed in North America since the end of the World Wars is really
unprecedented. It's one of the most unprecedented, isn't it?
Well, and thus the economic explosion that has resulted. Rice.
Yeah.
Left.
Aroni.
A San Francisco tree. Anyways, yes. So in times of trouble, if you're depressed, eat a handful of magic mushrooms and everything will be wonderful. And
I want to talk to you. I have a question for you about mushrooms.
Okay. Well, let's come back to that
after
we listen to our friend George.
Let's do that.
Hey there, Midas Letter viewers, traders, subscribers, and investors. Today, my guest is George Goldsmith. He's the CEO of Compass Pathways PLC, trades on NASDAQ under the symbol CMPS. George, welcome.
Thanks so much, James. Great to be part of this discussion. I know you've been really advancing the focus on this field, so appreciate being part of the conversation.
You bet. George, can we start with an overview of the business of Compass Pathways, please?
Sure. We are a mental health care company, really focused on accelerating patient access to evidence-based innovation in mental health. And I think every word is important. We're in a huge crisis right now, have been for quite a while, of mental health burden. COVID's made that worse. And so when we talk about accelerating patient access, people need new additional approaches because what we have just doesn't work for enough people. And so innovation is critical, and we're really believing that psilocybin therapy, psilocybin coupled with psychological support and digital tools can really help be a new tool to help patients who haven't been helped before. And that requires a lot of evidence. So, we're really dedicated to doing the good, hard work of clinical trials. Right now, we're completing the largest trial ever done with psychedelics in 10 countries, 22 sites. And that'll be the basis for moving forward into the final phase 3, to bring this to patients.
Wow, that's great. So then how far are we away in the time frame until this can be regularly prescribed, in your opinion?
Well, it's a hard question to answer because data matter, and we don't have those data yet. But based on the earlier studies, I think that, we have a view that the development process here is perhaps less risky than we've seen in other medicines where we don't have this long history. And there's been quite a long history of psilocybin research. It's just never been done to the level of standard and the size that's required to make it accessible to patients. So it's a hard question to answer until we have the results of our phase 2b. But if everything went really, really well, we would imagine 2025 as being a time when the trials, the regulatory approvals were there, and people were actually able, outside of trials, to benefit. Of course, one of the things that happens today is with clinical trials, we are able to help those who respond. And even that's very gratifying to be able to do that work while we're testing this and seeing who benefits and for how long.
Sure. I'm kind of surprised at how the whole regulatory landscape has just done like a complete 180-degree about face in its attitude towards what have formerly been listed as Schedule 1 drugs. And I'm curious as to what drove that sudden about face at the regulatory level, because that's not really consistent with the attitudes that characterize regulators historically.
Well, look, I think part of this is getting a little wonky for a moment about regulators. And there are regulators who really are in place, or like the FDA or Health Canada or the MHRA or European Medicines Agency. Their really purpose is to make sure that whatever goes to patients is of high quality and that the safety and efficacy are in bounds for the seriousness of the condition. That's one type of regulation. And those regulators have been supported from day one. All they want is evidence, because their work is, how do we make sure that patients get something that they can reliably benefit from? And we don't have snake oil salesmen on every corner overselling benefits to vulnerable patients. Those regulators have always been science first, show us the evidence. And in our conversations with them in many countries, they're really excited about this because they become regulators because they want to get things to patients. That's why regulators are regulators. It's not like going to the principal's office, right? These people want to make sure things are safe. Now, the different regulators are the ones who, the drug enforcement agencies and so forth, they're a different type of regulator. And you're right, things are still unfreezing there, and with good reason that, these are not incredibly things that you should be doing every day without any support or any kind of real understanding. So, there is risk here. And so, those regulators are now getting educated, being open to it. And you'll see that through decriminalization efforts and so forth. And I don't think anybody should go to prison for trying to change their consciousness. I think the real issue here is, how do we ensure people can really benefit and reliably benefit? And we know who can and who can't.
Sure. So how did you come to be involved in the psychedelic as a mental health therapy field?
Well, it's life just hands you these things. So I think our story is fairly well known. Our son, my co-founder, my wife, Ekaterina Mavskaya, and she's a doctor, a physician. Her son became really, really ill with depression, OCD. We didn't know what to do. The more people we spoke to, the clearer it was that we weren't alone. We like to say everyone has a story. I know many people we talked to were familiar with this really hard journey of what happens. And so, sleepless night, she discovered psilocybin in 2013. She woke me up and said, "You were in the 60s and 70s. What do you know about this stuff?" And I said, "Well, actually a fair amount." And what that led was a reconnection to this area. It had been an interest of mine many, many years ago in the late 60s, early 70s. And what it enabled me to do is to see that there was real promise here. But what was missing is that a lot of the promise was focused on papers and publications. Really important. It's critical to get science ahead, but it's completely necessary but not sufficient to reach patients. And we were really motivated to bring things to people like our son so that others didn't have to walk this kind of trial and error path that we had. So that's what drove us to do it. I've had a lot of experience in collaboration, working with regulators on thorny issues in the pharmaceutical industry. So it just seemed like it was the right thing to do.
Sure. Okay, so then the regulators are open to it. The FDA is obviously participating or facilitating your exploratory progress. What has been the results in terms of the success rate of using psilocybin to treat various forms of depression?
Well, we're focused specifically on something called treatment-resistant depression. Now, this is a weird statement because we've not met any patients who are resisting treatment. This is really people who are unable to be helped by what we have today. Now, that's the study that we're doing. This is a group of people who currently are relapsing 80 to 90% after a treatment. So this is a very grim place to be if you're a patient. And so that's what we're focused on. Early studies show that, about 70% of people have some response. What we really don't know yet, and why we're doing the work we're doing, is we're doing the largest study. We're generating data so we can understand who will benefit, what's the right dose, and that all enables us to then go into how do we develop this at scale for patients. We're also training therapists. We're also looking at the set and setting. How is this applied best in a way that really provides safety, confidence for patients? So, we have very high response rates, not we have, prior studies have. We don't know what our response rates are, and that's what we're really waiting for the end of the year, to see what happens in a really well-controlled, well-designed studies that really haven't been able to be done before. So kind of all eyes are on the end of the year for us, but we're very confident that there's progress. And I guess the last thing I'll mention, the first study, an academic study designed by academicians, not by us, but it was a really interesting study. It appeared in the New England Journal of Medicine about a month ago. It was comparing 2 doses of our psilocybin at 25 milligram, a relatively high dose, over 3 weeks, compared to 6 weeks of the leading antidepressant. And the study wasn't powered to be statistically significant, but directionally what was there was very encouraging. And that showed that psilocybin was superior, numerically superior, on many dimensions: anxiety, depression, but also well-being, a sense of flourishing, with a really different side effect profile. And so I think we're really, really focused on, let's see what happens when we have the industrial strength, so to speak, study. That'll be out at the end of the year, but, with a lot of promising signals.
Wow, that's fantastic. And then, so in terms of the, like you guys have 190 million in cash from the investor perspective, it doesn't look like you're going to run out of cash anytime soon. How expensive is it for you to get to the end of the year in this trial, and what are your projected expenditures for further research, assuming the success of this trial?
Our view is that we are really well equipped to continue our work developing new compounds, shorter acting compounds that we're doing with the University of Sciences in Philadelphia. We are also well suited to move into other indications beyond treatment-resistant depression. Our focus is where patients aren't really helped by what's out there today. And so areas that we're focused on and starting studies in include PTSD, anorexia, OCD. So there's a whole bunch of things that we're working on, and all of that's expensive. It trials at this level, the level of quality, is very time consuming and costly. Typical medicines are a couple $100 million to bring to market. And so this is, we've done a really, really great job with support of amazing investors to really make a difference in mental health care for people who just aren't helped today.
Sure. Okay, George, we're going to have to leave it there for now, but this is fascinating stuff for me and for our audience. So we're going to hopefully have you back very soon. We're going to have all eyes on the end of the year. I really thank you for your time today.
You bet. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, James.
You bet. Bye for now. Quite interesting, George, having that personal relationship with, he alluded to being interested in the sector from the 60s, clearly in a recreational mode, one might suspect, but I can't say that for sure. Right. Leading to a professional interest, and now here they are doing all these fantastic studies.
Do you think that mushrooms, fungi,
I'm a fun guy, you're a fun guy.
I'm a fun guy. Do you think that there's more and more evidence that the effects of mushrooms are really starting to help there's this sort of layer of madness that seems to be enveloping Homo sapiens as I think, it is a million reasons, right? But we're bombarded with digital, cave people in a digital world, right?
This world is drunk and the people are mad.
If you sit back and look at what goes on, you've got to truly say,
well, I see what you're getting at.
In other words,
yes is the answer.
The delusion.
Yes.
The delusion.
Yes.
Now,
the great thing about
so
regular
mushrooms,
exposure to yes.
What do they do? Do they make you
regular
relax?
exposure to psychedelic experiences
Right.
gives you the ability to view your life externally as a spectator, because it just shifts your perception ever so slightly, so that you see everything from the context of like you're a spectator now in your life.
Yeah.
And with that perspective, you're able to see the ridiculous essence of humanity.
Right.
And so it really,
right.
the end result is, in this, you take this with you back into your normal consciousness after the trip, is the lingering sense that really nothing should be taken that seriously, because it's all quite ridiculous.
Yeah, well, it is so ridiculous. I mean, think about,
as our good friend Mr. Stadnick used to say, we're all so damn stupid. We should just be helping each other try to get through this shit.
Yeah.
And I quite concur with that.
That's okay. So, and maybe mushrooms are a way of making people relax a bit, or at least see things and say.
You've done mushrooms before.
I really don't think I've had much. I need to get the right ones.
Dose.
I need to get the right mushrooms.
Yes. Well,
and we could maybe talk about that, but I wanted to bring up the fact that I've been introduced to a company that apparently uses a lot of mushrooms in their food formulations. I don't know. I never talked to anybody in the company.
Spaghetti sauce, pizzas.
It trades. Just started trading a few months ago.
Oh.
Okay, a few months ago.
New one?
Relatively brand new, but
okay. Who's that?
Okay, well, we're getting there. Here we go. So I bought some. No. I want you to maybe we'll maybe make a phone call next week.
To want
okay,
me.
we can. You don't have to. We can print this. That doesn't matter. Oh,
spit it out, man! What are you trying to say?
We'll be open for another week.
You're all aflutter.
We're going to be open for another week. No.
Did you buy shares in this company?
I bought a few.
What's the name of the company?
Okay, here we go. Here we go.
Have you got the symbol for us yet,
Just
man?
let me get the symbol for
Oh,
you.
right. Okay, in the meantime, I'm going to talk a bit about Voxtur. Voxtur announced that it was acquiring another new company called Benutech. And one of our guest questions was, has Voxtur revised sales estimates after the ANOW acquisition? And is the new acquisition focused more on data collection or more on revenue streams? And I would refer you to the press releases in which they released the last quarter's financials, in which they indicated that Voxtur is going to be producing $200 million in revenue in that neighborhood next year. And that's going to come from the economies of scale from these combined entities that are all in the real estate game. They each have their own existing revenue stream from their existing product base, customer base, and now they're selling all of the Voxtur customers all of the other products. And this is the compelling logic of any roll-up strategy within an industry, is that they're going to take everybody's disparate customer bases and sell them all the products from the acquired companies, because they're in the same industry. And
so it's all connected.
All connected. So the answer to that question is, the company has not issued any guidance in terms of revenue specifically, but all indications are that the company is going to increase sales through these combinations of customer bases and product suites. Now, I have to disclose again that I am biased, and Voxtur is a client. They gave us a very generous option, but they don't pay us any cash. And I had already bought the stock and owned the stock for quite some time. So I'm conflicted is my point. Yeah. So my opinion is obviously got to be based to some extent on my belief that it's going to go up, because I need the money, honey. I need the money. Anyways.
You do. You certainly do.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, a little bit of dough offsets a lot of problems, doesn't it?
For some mental issues I might have.
Oh, yeah.
From eating too many magic mushrooms? Ha ha! No.
No, but
no.
What is it they're saying?
No.
What are the things that are in mushrooms that seem to be
psilocybin?
And is it just a chemical that exists there, or is it a special?
It's a special chemical for a special ed. Like, that's why
Okay.
I can't. Yeah, like the fact you're asking that tells me, so you've eaten mushrooms, but you've never got a real
I
horse kick
did.
dose.
I was at a cabin once, and there was a bunch of us, and we all did. Yeah, that one
Yeah.
was a. But sometimes
Well,
you
a lot
get
of-
these. Don't eat too many, and you don't eat too many. And then,
Yeah,
okay,
I don't feel anything. I'm
nothing,
gonna keep going
nothing.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me
Well,
that
a lot
bag.
of people make the mistake of, taking mushrooms with alcohol, and you're not going to really
No.
get the experience
No.
drunk. If you're already drunk and you start eating mushrooms, you'll get
Okay.
zippy, but
Maybe that's the problem. Yeah.
But you're not going to get
Is
the
it
full
a bit of
mushroom
an
experience.
upper, or is it a sort of a?
Well, I have seen grown men in the fetal position on the floor pleading with me to stop the planets from whizzing by their ears. I'm speaking to a very specific gentleman who said, let's eat some more. And I'm like, Russell, I recommend that you just let that little bit you've had do its thing before you decide to eat. Yeah. Oh, bollocks, he says. He's a British guy. Oh, come on, just keep going. I think we ate about 3 grams each. And he had a horse kick dose and experience in the fact
Does he still do them?
I doubt it. See, this is the thing that if you do a hallucinogenic experience,
He went a little
in the
too
wrong
far. He
circumstances,
went too far.
Wrong dose, wrong set, wrong setting,
Wrong coach.
wrong people,
Wrong coach.
wrong people, wrong coach. What
Well,
are you
you-
saying?
because
I
you should have
saved
said
the man.
no.
He had planets whirring around his head. I
Yeah,
plucked
but
him
it
down
was that
from the
extra
heavens.
dosage.
No, it was.
Because you don't know. You can't. It's not going to affect you for an hour.
Well, the interesting thing about mushrooms is you can eat 1/2 gram and have the full Monty trip. And other times you can eat 1.5 grams and feel almost nothing. It just doesn't kick based on your biochemical makeup at the time. So it's interesting with mushrooms. Generally, like we used to eat them night after night. And
Right.
in that environment, you have to eat more and more and more to achieve the same effect because your body kind of gets used to it. So, I mean, mushrooms recreationally can be overdone like anything. But generally, regular exposure to the hallucinogenic realm, I believe, builds a strength in your metaphysical makeup that leaves you in a good position to defend against things like anxiety or depression or all of that. Like I think I can say that I've never ever been depressed, ever. Like I remember being depressed as a kid, but since I started on the magic mushrooms and smoking weed and drinking booze and we'll stop it there.
you know what? Whenever you have these discussions about, well, I'm going to go on a straight and narrow, and I've tried it many times, and I find for some reason that just the day-to-day is
Monotony.
boring.
Boring.
Boring. It's like there's no. Now what we're going to do to have some fun? Like,
Well, this is the...
I don't know if it's just me, but
That falls in the category of psychological addiction. Psychologically,
Right.
you want to do it again because life is boring. And that was a lot of fun.
that was
And
funny,
that's what
yeah.
usually keeps
Yeah.
everybody coming back for more. It's like, oh, you got some shrooms? Yeah, let's do some.
Oh, that's so much
It's a
more.
gorgeous starry night. Let's eat some magic mushrooms and get a little...
So it's a habit that
Yeah, but then there's other times where I remember last summer we sat here and we had a bag of mushrooms on the table. We started eating them and we were drinking heavily. And we ate the whole bag, me and 2 others.
No kidding.
The whole bag. And we got so silly that I remember the one fellow's son had to pull us out of the ditch, me and my buddy, because we were just lying in the ditch, laughing our heads off. We'd fallen in.
Yeah.
We were trying to get to the river. Just ridiculous. But
It's
you wake up from that experience feeling a little
it's-
empty.
You can
But
sort of say that mushrooms put you in the ditch.
mushrooms put us in the ditch. And we were looking up at the stars. Anyways, yeah, enough about mushrooms. But yeah, I highly recommend magic mushrooms.
Okay.
Highly recommend, especially now that they're being decriminalized.
But so this company, okay, listen to this one, okay, Rritual, spelled RR,
Rritual.
Superfoods.
Rritual Superfoods.
That's
Spelled
the name of
with
the
2
company.
R's?
Yeah.
That sounds like a typo to me.
No. It's R.
Really?
There's the ticker. Raymond Sam Frank.
RSF.
And they're using mushrooms to make these different foods. And apparently, their sales are escalating very rapidly.
Really?
And it's just starting. And there's some interesting people on the board. And again, I've not talked to this company, okay? I've not talked to them, so I'm not the people. If this
River
goes to
North Specialty Finance Corporation.
in Canada, RSF.
Oh, in Canada.
I tell you.
Pity.
Okay.
Okay.
You can't-
Here it is. Rritual Superfoods, Inc.
That's what I just said.
You did? Where was I?
Yeah, you were taking a trip. Okay. So I have never talked to this company.
73 cents a share. How many shares outstanding?
I think about 65 million.
65 million?
Yeah, 45 million market cap or something. But they just came out with something I thought that was very important. They reached their goal.
Yes. Which was?
To get to a certain number of outlets.
Yes.
Retail outlets in the States.
Okay.
By a certain date.
Yes.
And they
blew through it?
blew through it. And
Okay.
now...
And you own shares in this?
I bought a few, not a lot of shares.
You just bought them out of the market?
Bought it. Yeah, I bought them in the market. And I'll tell you why.
They didn't give you any for being on the show.
Actually, so somebody I know called me.
Yes.
And just told me about it. And I started looking into it. I said, yeah, this makes sense because the mushroom craze, mushroom-based food, I don't know.
Those aren't magic mushrooms.
No. It's not, but mushrooms nonetheless.
Medicinal mushrooms. Well, mushrooms, all species of mushrooms have really interesting chemical makeups.
Yeah.
Lion's mane mushroom supposedly has elements for brain power.
There you go.
Reishi mushrooms
And
have
hence the
elements
lion's mane around your head.
Yeah.
There you go, like a halo.
I think they call it lion's mane because it's got
Right.
shaggy
Okay.
mushroom. We had some growing back here this last winter. We ate some from our own forest.
You can eat your own mushroom fungi.
You can eat anything you want at Jimmy's restaurant. Ba-doom, boom, boom.
So back to this company. I don't know much about it, but I'm going to try and find out much more about it.
Yes,
because
well, you've certainly, at least you gave us a symbol, Edward. What? That was at least a little bit helpful. Thank you. No, but that's good that you've intrigued me because there's a real fad in the investment universe now towards alternative foods.
One of the
food
people on their
types.
board, listen to this one.
Okay.
One of the people on their board was involved in,
Car accident?
no, and
Hit and run.
what's the liquid that is the most expensive liquid other than alcohol?
Most
and
expensive
they're big
liquid perfume.
Yeah, you drink it. It's
Balsamic vinegar.
it's with lots of caffeine or something.
Wine.
No, Jesus.
Wine. Wine has caffeine.
Come on, you guys, somebody knows.
Wine. There's nothing more expensive liquid than wine, is there?
Something without booze.
Something.
Formula
Gasoline.
One. Formula One they're a big sponsor
Kerosene.
of Formula
Jet
One.
fuel.
Oh yeah. Red Bull. Red fucking Bull.
Red Bull? Red Bull's not expensive.
Red Bull, get your wings. No, it's the most expensive drink you can buy that it doesn't have alcohol in it. Red
What?
Bull. It is.
Hogwash.
Google it.
Nah.
Google it. A drinkable drink.
What about
There's nothing more expensive.
What about Royal Jelly Soda?
They're not paying us to talk about this, okay?
No, Royal Jelly Soda. That's more expensive than
Royal
Red Bull.
jelly soda in my ass.
What do you mean your ass? Don't stick it in your ass. That would be a waste of royal
Okay.
jelly.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to Amazon right now and I'm going to look up Royal Jelly Soda. See
Here we
what
go.
that's worth. Leave
I think you
sight.
have to ask the question.
Here, you want to know what 25 bottles of Royal Jelly liquid will cost you? $999.
Right.
$999, $1,000.
Yeah, but that's not what I said.
Royal Jelly is actually a liquid anyways.
No, it's jelly.
But is not jelly
It's jelly.
is that not a liquid that
I
is...
didn't say liquid. I said jelly. I said that one of the gentlemen on the board of that company was involved with Red Bull.
Oh.
And so he's done, and there's some, if you look
Was he
at
the guy that
board,
ran over the policeman
look
and
at-
that's looking for by Interpol?
Don't even talk about that. Look at the list of people
Yes.
on the board,
Yes.
and look at their very shortened resumes.
Okay.
They
Bios
seem to be people that know this of space,
of means.
and they can get things done rapidly.
Okay, so you're saying
And
that...
this is all on my own investigation.
Okay.
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 So the world's slowing.
RFS, so
as
let's
I
get
know.
them on the show.
Well,
I'm going to interview these guys.
Yeah. Well, let's do it.
All
Let's do
right,
it.
we
Okay.
will. You call them up.
I'll
get
get
them
it-
in
I'll-
touch with
yeah,
Suzanne.
yeah,
She'll
yeah.
get them on the show.
Yeah. Okay.
Our next guest has a solution for the despicable landfill contamination with disposable one-shot, one-cup use coffee machines. And I'm going to let our guest tell you about that.
All right.
Hey there, Midas Letter subscribers, traders, investors, and viewers. Today my guest is Ash Gugliani. He is the president of NEXE Innovation, Inc., trading on the TSX Venture under the symbol NEXE. Ash, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Ash, can you start with an overview of what's the business of NEXE?
Yeah, so what NEXE does is we take advanced manufacturing technologies and we create compostable product innovations to replace everyday single-use plastics. Our main purpose right now is single-serve coffee pods. We're taking, right now, our focus has been a fully compostable, a fully compostable K-cup. And we're also working on launching a fully compostable Nespresso pod in the next during this quarter, actually.
Huh. Wow, that's huge. So certainly that's the weak point in the whole value proposition of those pod coffee systems, is the fact that this never-ending stream of waste is clogging landfills. So how do you go about reprocessing them? What exactly is the process?
Well, the whole purpose of a K cup or an espresso pod was convenience. One shot of coffee and you're good. But it's created this massive stream of waste. And what's happened now is you've seen Nespresso come out and K cup or Keurig come out and say we're going to do a recyclable pod. Well, I don't know if you ever tried to recycle a pod. It is one hell of a process. You gotta you gotta rip the lid off, throw that in the garbage, take the grounds out, throw that in the compost, take the filter out, and maybe the shell will get recycled. With our pod, everything is compostable. All the materials were plant based. All our materials are compostable, and even the coffee is compostable. So you take the pod, you brew it, and you throw it in your green bin.
Right. So you guys have raised over $64 million to date, and some of that's come from the government. So
Yeah.
what's the status of the revenue model? How do you make money with this?
So what we're going to be doing here is with that capital raised, we are waiting for some of our key equipment to come in to scale the project. We can launch now. So we're going to be doing some e-commerce launches here for, we've launched Zoma Superfoods. We'll be launching our next Nespresso pods as well as our next K-Cup coffee pods over the remainder of this year, and really get it going on e-commerce, because coffee is it's a product of convenience. You don't have to go to the grocery store to get coffee. Nespresso proved that a long time ago with their subscription model. So we'll be following the same channels, and as we are able to launch and scale these products, we've got a lot of partners who would love to work with us, and if it makes sense, we'll definitely look at those opportunities.
Sure. So then who are some of the bigger corporate relationships you have?
Well, right now we're not really going to say much. Right now, we're focused more on just getting our product out there, getting it into the hands of all our in the hands of customers who want access to a compostable coffee pod. I could tell you there's probably over 40 billion pods plus are consumed and produced and consumed every year. And that continues to grow at 8.5% a year. So getting customers for a compostable coffee pod is not going to be hard. The one thing I will say is it's great to have a compostable pod, but we actually make a really good cup of coffee. So James, when it's ready, we'll be sending you some, and
Oh,
you could
great.
try it. You'll be happy to see it doesn't taste like mud water. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, we've nailed extraction, especially using our materials. We're able to get more volume into our K cup, and that's one of the big drivers of why we get a lot of attention for our technology and what we've been able to do.
Sure. So what kind of expense does this add to the whole economics of serving an instant cup of coffee using these systems to use your compostable pods in lieu of what the existing technology is?
You know what? It's not going to be much different. I mean, there'll be a little bit of a premium. I think customers are willing to pay a little bit more for a compostable pod, but we're not looking to. For us, it's more about just getting the exposure for a compostable pod out there. So they'll be priced fairly similar to a Starbucks K cup or a Nespresso pod,
All
which
right.
would be around a buck.
Okay. And so in terms of the capacity to produce, would you be able to supply all of Nespresso's sort of global customer base at this point, or what would you have to do to get to that point?
Well, our goal is to get capacity in by the end of, or really in by Q1, to have capacity of about 200 million pods between Nespresso and K-Cup. That's a drop in the bucket. As I mentioned, there's about over 40 billion pods are produced and consumed for both formats. So it's a long road ahead, but the economics are very good, and getting to that 200 million mark plus, ordering new lines. I mean, I think we're going to make a pretty good dent out the gate, and keep working to create the best partnerships we can to create the most disruption we can.
Yeah, you bet. What's the competitive landscape look like for that sort of segment? Is there a lot of companies producing compostable, biodegradable coffee pods?
There are a couple others. Like I said before, I think we've seen more recyclable pods out there. There's a couple other compostable pods, but look, it's a huge space, and it's a huge mission, and there's massive distribution, and I mean the industry's ready for disruption. So we know what gives us a competitive advantage with our pods, with volume. And I think that's what's going to drive a large chunk of the customer base towards our pods.
Okay. What's the pathway look like towards profitability for the company?
Well, I think once we're able to kind of once we're able to build this at scale, profitability is not, it's not difficult. It's really a volume-based business, right? So, once we could kind of start filling that capacity more towards that 200 million, I don't think profitability is an issue.
Mm-hmm. Okay, is there any risk that the manufacturers of the incumbent technologies will just sort of say, hey, that's a good idea, let's do that ourselves instead of coming to you? Or is it going to be more economic and from a time basis to just come and use your technology?
Well, I think the latter there. We've got a lot of IP around not just our capsule, but even around our machinery and our processes. All of our equipment is highly customized. We've learned a lot about these materials over the last 5 years. This isn't something that you could kind of really reverse engineer. There's really all our ingredients and our own secret sauce. We've got a lot of trade secrets with this. As I mentioned, we've got IP, but we've really learned how these materials work at high speed and how they work together in a high pressure, high heat environment when they're going through a coffee machine. So it's something that I think we've done a pretty good job in protecting ourselves, and we'll continue to do a pretty good job in protecting ourselves as sharp.
Okay, great. Ash, we're going to leave it there for now. We'll come back to you in due course for a follow-up. That's a great story. We look forward to hearing more. Thanks for your time today. So, Ed, El Salvador, the Central American country, has...
I've been there, by the way.
Have you?
Only in a
have you ever had the papoose?
layover.
Layover?
To continue to fly to...
Oh.
Where?
From El Salvador, Panama.
I'm just trying to think.
Belize City.
Costa Rica.
Costa Rica. I went to Costa Rica and I drank all the liquor in Costa Rica.
I flew from Belize to El Salvador, from El Salvador, Costa Rica.
Cheaping out or something?
Well, that's just the way it works down there.
Oh, yes.
You know what? Now, what does that mean? The first country to say we're going to accept this.
Well, and what portion of global currency trade would you say is represented by El Salvador?
No, that was sort of my next question, but would you say 1%?
I don't think it would even touch 1%. It's a poor country, right?
But yet it encourages, I think, illegal money.
Well, that's just it. We know through news, evidence, media stories that Bitcoin is the preferred currency of hackers,
thugs,
drug dealers, arms dealers, murder for hire.
You know what? Maybe this is a big dragnet operation set up.
Well, hey, on that note, did you hear about the FBI took down this private network? I can't remember what it was called, and they just let it run. And all the criminals, they had like 11,000 handset subscribers, and it was used all by the global criminals. They busted 800 people, largest global dragnet ever.
Well, there you go. And there you go. See?
And it was a
I think
network
it, and it happens.
All right, so let's take a look at NEXE Innovation's chart here.
Okay. Okay.
Like, look at that, spiked up to, oops.
So you think it back to what you do
Spiked
about
up to
nothing.
$6,
Okay.
back down here to $1.19. You know what that tells me is there was a lot of shares. A lot of shares were done cheaply in the shell and or during the private roll-up.
Right.
But
Right.
that is the chart that tells you of a poor structure.
Yeah.
But I think based on the business that they've got, that they'll get through it. So this
Right.
might actually be a good entry point. I want to take a look at their sales numbers.
What's the current market cap?
Well, it's Ed.
Not so
You're not supposed to ask the
Not so-
tough questions. Let's see. For that, I'd have to go to another
Okay.
website.
Okie dokie.
Okay, so the company has a market cap today of $117 million.
And
Year high was $5.90.
Wow.
The year's low was 37.5 cents. Now, because I kind of like this story, because, you know, if they start developing all of the pods for all of the company that make coffee pods, because it's so biodegradable, that this could be a really big business. Like, we're talking how many cups of coffee you drink every day
Right.
in the world. That's incredible.
You-
Anyways, I think this could be a good entry point. We'll take a look at the financials and
We'll get back
yeah,
to you.
maybe we'll buy it. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll come back to you next week on that.
Okay.
We'll get back to you. I'll have my people call your people. You have your
okay.
people call my people. We'll
Okay.
do lunch.
Okay.
How does that sound?
Okay.
Excellent.
Let's have okay.
The CPI number came out
I
this
know.
week.
Big number. Big,
0.7.
big.
Doesn't seem like a big number.
Well, 0.7 times 12 is
4.
8.4 or 8.2? 8.4.
8.4.
Okay.
8.4% annualized inflation in the consumer product price index.
I
Consumer
guess so.
price index.
There's so many different ones.
What's in the consumer price index? What is it representing?
And then they
Gas?
came out with the core number. The core number.
Core CPI.
Ooh, core CPI. Ooh, special one. Is there so many of these damn things, right?
Yeah.
Why don't they just have one?
Oh, they're just trying to bamboozle us.
Anyway, so these numbers are suggesting that there's, and the big debate, you know, when you talk to people that are interested in economic events, etc., the big debate is this inflation transitory, or is it
Well,
the
okay.
beginning of a
Great
secular
point.
move? And
Great
that's
point.
what, you know,
Great point.
the doves would say.
Great point. Great point.
Is there an echo in here?
No, so which brings me to the next point.
What's the next?
So
wait
they-
a minute, the great point or the next point?
The great point
Okay.
that you just made is driven by the rampant monetary inflation driven by the central banks led by the United States Central Bank that they call the Federal Reserve.
Yes.
And so they just last week took $500 billion in liquidity out of the market through the reverse repo market, which is 4 months worth of stimulus that they've been printing $120 billion a month by buying bonds.
So they basically neutralized 4 months of their buying.
So without announcing that they're going to taper, they are tapering. And so I think this is why we're seeing commodity prices top out right here right now. Besides the digestion.
lumber, you saw lumber all the way back under 1,200. I saw.
Well, yeah, and
From-
lumber
from
prices
18
are starting to come down in the stores too, and at the wholesalers. So,
Well,
yeah, and that's going to
but
only.
you know, you can grow a tree in a couple of months, right? Well, maybe not. Maybe not.
No,
Like
no,
sapling?
Edward.
Little toothpick?
No. Well, you can
A
grow
weed. You can grow a
You
weed.
can grow a sapling, a seedling. Retiring 500 billion while still printing 120 billion is kind of makes a mockery of the idea of financial management on the Fed's part. wouldn't you say?
Yeah. On the other hand, I'm kind of surprised that they got the damn 10-year rate under 150. Like this is all.
Well, and to what
Like,
extent
to
is that
think-
driven by the fact that they are evidently
Well,
tapering without tapering? Like
look,
if you wanted
look.
to communicate to the money market participants that you were going to taper without making a
Yeah.
overt announcement about tapering, how would you do that? You'd start taking liquidity out of the system in a way that the mainstream media it would be too sophisticated a way for the mainstream
Would
media
you
to
say
notice.
this would be a move of obfuscation?
Obfuscation.
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 Or obfuscation.
Obfuscation.
Would you say that?
No, I would say obfuscation. You would say obfuscation.
I say obfuscation.
Obfuscation.
So it looks,
Yeah,
it
I
looks
would say it's-
murkier and murkier all the time.
Well, I would say it is a deliberate and
Overt?
transparent
Overt?
act. Well, it's not overt; it's covert.
No, it's overt because
Well,
it's
no.
transparent.
No. It's transparent to those who are watching the
Semantics,
repo market, but who watches the here? Have an ant.
I'm reading the.
Yes, come on.
So you know what? The point is, commodities seem to have hit a bit of a wall. Things seem to have, and yet rates are starting to ease a bit, which is what they really want. Yet they don't want the inflation to cool too much.
Well, I mean,
This is going to be a
I think when
real
you start to see
balancing act.
the liquidity driven into the market, driving consumer prices up like we just saw, that even the Fed is not dumb enough to think that they can keep that game going. They have to target that CPI number because it's not just a number, it's actually a representation of a basket of goods that people buy.
Yeah.
So if the prices keep going up and wages don't go up, then what happens? You end up with more and more people unemployed. Unemployment goes up, lower tax base, less services. Country goes to hell in a handbasket faster than you can say Jack the motherfucking Bear.
I also, keep coming back to the great divergence between the haves and the have-nots, and that's never been greater. It's never been greater, and that,
Well, and it's amazing how fast people in our business go from one side to the other and back again. Like
over and over.
Over and over.
A few times.
Yeah, I'd say it's
Round
probably
trip.
emblematic of a capital markets cowboy.
Yeah,
making money, tough. Keeping money,
tougher.
very tough. Yes, as we are learning daily.
Well.
Anyway, so let's take some audience questions. Ooh, we haven't done that.
Okay.
Let's do that.
All right.
We did take a couple, but we're going to take some more here.
All right.
Audience questions. All right. Herman Hertner wants to know, do you think that Voxtur will appreciate before the private placement comes unlocked around July 13th? Do I think it will appreciate? Do I believe the share price is going to go up? The one thing that we're not allowed to do while owning the stock as a media enterprise is predict the future share price in any way, shape, or form. So do I think, I have an opinion about that. If there are more buyers than sellers, the share price will rise. However, if more sellers materialize than buyers, the share price will tumble. And I can't predict on a day-to-day basis how many of whom are going to show up. So I can't answer that question. And anybody who does is merely speculating. So, do I think that the release of the private placement shares, of which I own actually 100,000 of those, do I think that they are going to constitute downward pressure on the share price post-release? Absolutely. But there's 10 million warrants out there at 25 cents, and the share price is still holding in there at 90 cents, thanks in large part to our non-stop blabbering about it. No, but the company just announced a tripling of revenue in the last quarter, so it's rising in share price based on revenue. It's got 400 million shares out there. Management has about 50%, and it's locked up. So that's off the table. So I think if this company starts to do double-digit Q-on-Q growth, like the last quarter, they do that for 4 quarters, this thing's a runaway train. Yeah. No ifs, ands, or buts. And I think that somebody's going to try to take them out. So there's a long answer to your question, Herman. Hope that helped. Hermer. Almost called him Hermia. We don't want to have a Hermia. Anyways, a gentleman who calls himself Walking Speech.
Yes.
Don't know if I'd want to spend too much time with that dude. Anyways, he wants to know, what do you think about cobalt mining in North America? I'd say it's a dirty business. Dirty. There isn't any. Is there any?
I don't know. I don't know much about cobalt. There's so much technology involved in these batteries.
Well, let's talk about the cobalt industry for a bit. Where's the demand for cobalt coming from today, Edward?
Big for steel, right?
Somewhat, yes. Cobalt, hardened steel.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not.
But lithium-ion batteries have a high level of cobalt as a major ingredient,
well,
right?
why'd you ask me the question if you knew the answer?
Because I'm a lawyer. You never ask me a question that you don't know what you're going to say.
Were you trying to trick me?
I was sowing the seeds of a trap. No.
Sowing the seeds of
but here's
discord.
The thing. I get to talk about one of my other favorite companies I own a shit ton of stock in, GMG Graphene Manufacturing Group. Cobalt is a major ingredient in the lithium-ion battery. Yes. Lithium-ion batteries are the dominant battery type among rechargeable batteries. Yes. However, at the University in Queensland and in partnership with Graphene Manufacturing Group, they are testing coin-sized batteries that are comprised of aluminum and graphene. What do you see? 20 times more power density, 7,000
No, 7,000.
7,000 volts per kilogram. Is that right? I could look at the. Anyways, look at the headline.
You're talking about a breakthrough.
20 times the power density of lithium-ion batteries and doesn't need cobalt.
No, doesn't need cobalt.
No, doesn't need cobalt. So, what do I think about cobalt mining in North America? I don't think there's much of it, A. B, I don't think there's going to be much demand for it once this new battery technology becomes dominant.
Is that technology, can that become state of the art?
Well, I do believe it can.
And if it does, then
all that lithium
then forget about cobalt. What would you need cobalt for?
What would you need lithium for?
What would you need anything for?
What would you need a car for?
Yeah, you could just
imagine yourself somewhere else and
you do mushrooms and pretend.
And you start talking in circles and people are like, what the fuck is with these guys? They're kind of out there.
Okay.
Anyways, so yeah, I think that cobalt mining is a bit of a highly risky investment because
you're going to get a lot of people now that are involved in cobalt
hating me. Yeah, well, that's too bad.
You're telling them the truth.
I'm telling it like I see
your
it.
opinion.
I'm just like Donald Trump. I'm saying exactly what I feel was on my mind.
You were on my mind.
You're always on my mind.
Okay, all right, next.
You're always on my mind. Anyways, next, right, to the point. Where are we going with this? Where are we going with this, Edward? So we've covered the cobalt. Oh, questions from the audience, right. Khalid Little wants us to comment on this question. Now, this is a complex issue. I'm doing the Donald Trump thing here.
All right.
Khalid Little wants to know, what is big tech is unaffected by the global corporate tax because they will continue to avoid paying tax under the new agreement, ?
Yeah.
Okay, that wording doesn't make sense. I'm going to assume that there was a typo made there somewhere, but it sounds like he wants to know, how will big tech be affected by the global corporate tax? Because they will continue to avoid, well, okay, so everybody knows that all the big tech corporations have their holding companies in places like Ireland and the Cook Islands and the Marshall, not so much the Marshall Islands, and they hold trillions and trillions of dollars offshore that they don't pay tax on. What would happen, Edward, if you or I did that? Held trillions of dollars offshore and neglected to pay tax?
Nothing, because we'd then be like the other companies.
Well, but let's just say that I give you $1 trillion and say, Edward,
where are you going to get that
I suggest you hide this.
Where are you going to get it from?
Well, from my offshore bank account, obviously.
Yeah. Look, the reason why these companies are almost
tax-free.
Well, they're almost impenetrable because they have all this money. Yeah. So they got the money, then they can hire their people to figure out.
Do you think they use their wealth to influence
everything?
Elections,
yeah, you know,
and policies that might affect corporate taxation. Do you think they're interested in that?
Didn't Elon Musk just buy the Washington Post?
Do you think there's a conflict of interest inherent in an industrialist owning a newspaper?
I think the people that have figured out that if you have, and again, if it doesn't matter to you, you don't care. But if you have money or power, I guess, like the church, then you get to control other people. I guess it's all about control.
I don't want to control anybody. That's our show for this week. We hope you enjoyed it. Please write us, jwest@midasletter.com or
Ed Molesky
at
live.com.
Live.com. Ed Molesky at live.com. And we'll see you next week. Happy trading, investing, and try to stay...
try to stay liquid.
Try some magic mushrooms. I highly recommend it.
Try.